Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Your View? I'm Sumayyah Simone.
And I'm Dr. Sheila Lewis Ealey, welcoming you to another episode where today's topic is fear.
And so now, when you think about it, fear can be captivating, it's hypnotic, it's contagious, it's irrational and polarizing and isolating. And it can grip your heart if you don't put it in perspective. So we're here to talk about this with a special guest, John Salama. We're going to welcome you on, John. Hello.
Hey there, ladies. How are you?
We're good.
Fine. And welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on with you, ladies, today. I'm so excited. This is a topic that, we see every single day with people that we meet, people that we talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. So, first and foremost, a martial artist. I've been in the martial industry since I was 11 years old. I launched my business at 18, helping, my parents put me through college. I became an engineer. And then, you know what? Money was great in engineering, but then I realized, you know what? My passion is in martial arts and working with people, helping them break through their barriers and helping them break through their mental fears that's created every single day. And after that, I tapped into the health and wellness industry to help people break through another barrier when it comes to weight loss or managing your nutrition and things of that sort. But then I realized fear still is in their mind. Fear is what holds us down from reaching our goals, right? So then I decided to become a life coach. Now, the beauty of this is all three combined together really helped me first and foremost to break through my barriers, break through my fears, because hey, a lot of us, I don't care what industry you're in, you can walk around with your head held up high, shoulders are broad, but internally you still have a lot of fear.
Right. And I would think you're still engineering. You're just not engineering things. You're
Mm,
engineering people, right?
yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Again, engineering is such when we think of engineering, we think electrical, mechanical, all that stuff, right? But it's all
Right.
about planning. It's all about designing. It's all about, being able to make the smallest little molecule do something so big, right? And, I was like, no, you know what? I want to take it to a different level. I don't want to design the chips anymore. I don't want to be in that industry anymore. I want to go re-engineer myself, re-engineer the world and the people that I work with every single day.
That's
Don, when you
beautiful.
think about fear, you have a very fascinating background because one of the things I believe martial arts does for you, it gives you the ability to be very disciplined. And
Mm,
once you have that amount of discipline, you can actually focus and see where you're going. So, in a sense, it helps you to put all of these barriers, especially fear, into perspective when there's a challenge that you're facing ahead of you. Because I think
of
so
course.
often when we think about fear, many people have fear because they don't know where to start. They don't know where to begin. They don't have the discipline to understand how to put projects together or how to get from point A to point B. And martial arts, it has the ability to show you direction step by step, which within your mindset, you can reevaluate who you are, where you are, and then get to where you're going.
Right.
Absolutely. I'm glad how you just kind of took it and you broke it down into those little steps. And even though, we teach martial arts in a way to help the individual become stronger, right? And to be
Yes.
able to do so many things, there still comes that moment of fear. Can I still utilize my martial arts skills on the street? Can I still utilize it to defend myself? Can I still utilize martial arts in a way where I can talk my way out of situations instead of, fighting into that situation? All these little steps could still cause fear in your head. If you're not mentally sound and if you're not mentally prepared for that situation, you could still have fear. I don't think in this world that there is a person who's going to walk around and say, I am fearless. We still have fear, but it's all in how we deal with it at that given moment or that given situation.
Right. And we named the episode The Hypnosis of Fear because what I noticed about fear is that it has a way of gripping you. Like it literally
Mm,
has a way of captivating you and kind of, kind of like when you think about the deer in the headlights, right? It can take you over and it's contagious. So if you don't have a way to deal with it can sweep
mm.
across huge swaths of people. It could take over a family. Like it's amazing, what it can do if you don't have control over it. So I would think like in your line of work, like you see a lot of it. And certainly like even in training, like, you showing up on the mat, right, with your
Mm,
students, there's some fear in there, like as they're sparring with each other and
yes.
how do you teach them to get past that hypnosis element of it?
So uh, the mind will either make you or break you, right? If you guys have heard John Ron, or you've heard, I'm sorry, Jim Ron, or you've heard Tony Robbins, they'll tell you when you're in your head, you're dead. And that's fear. Fear allows us to be so much in our head that if we don't come out of that situation, if we don't really focus on how can we deal with the situation at hand, you're going to be dead, right? So in the classroom environment, we do like multiple levels of drills, right? We will do the drill what is teaching you how to do the movement, okay? And we play a movie or play a scenario where you could utilize that movement. And then we go into the power concept of the movement. So we learn it, right? Just air, right? Just, flurry your hands or move your hands. And then we play the movie situation so they will interact it with one another, right? And then we will do power concept where we would punch the bag or punch the pads or kick the bag or the pads, whatever the situation may be. And then we go into the breaking. So level it up one level to the next level to the next level until they realize fear is conquered as we level up into our steps.
Mhm.
And then
Mm.
we will put our gear on, and then we will hit each other. And that hitting concept could be anywhere from light contact to semi-contact to full contact based on where you are at your level of fear or level of, instead of saying fear, now I'm going to use the word comfort. Could we level up? Could we do things in a way that you would snap out of it quickly? And then we would do scenarios like, okay, here's a pretend concept, or here's what we're going to do. Here's a scenario presented at you. Could you come up with a move, or can you come up with a choreography that you would protect yourself? And this is why we have the color belts, which is what we call the journey to becoming a black belt. Right? And then we have the black belt levels, which is the journey of becoming an expert as you go up into the different levels. And the black belt journey alone is like years and years and years of training. A lot of people think when they get their black belt, then they've like gotten their black belt, they can defend themselves.
They've arrived.
They've arrived. Yes, like I've broken all the fear. No. This is just a journey of barely understanding the moves. True self-defense take a lot of years, a lot of practice, consistent training, right? The beginning years is knowledge. Now let's put that knowledge to work. Knowledge without action is nothing, right? So
Right.
getting to that first level of black belt is just knowledge. After that, let's put it into action.
And I think
Right.
that's the key word, putting it into action.
Hmm.
Because even on a different scope of fear, and we're not talking about where you're actually being assaulted or attacked, but just fear when you're thinking about doing something different, or
Mm-hmm.
you're listening to information that's coming at you that sounds plausible and you don't know whether or not it's true, and all of a sudden fear swells up within you. You decide, you know what, I'm going to keep my distance from what's going on around me, or I'm not going to pursue that because I have a sense of failure within me. I don't want to
Mm.
fail at what I'm doing. I noticed that when I worked with children with autism. I have a son who has a diagnosis of autism, and I used to run a school, And I had all of these boys who were afraid to try something new. They were fearful of it because they did not want to be unsuccessful in what they did. They did not want to come across, even though most were nonverbal, as looking silly or stupid to others, because they actually wanted to fit in. So what's the best way to fit in? To stand back and just pretend that you're truly observing instead of being a part of the classroom. So what I did, I enrolled the whole class in martial arts. And I found an instructor who was willing to take these special children. These were severe children at the time. Willing to take them. They would go to class and they would partner a buddy system with a child that was typical. And over the 3-year period that we did that, I watched these children emerge and come into their own sense of confidence. The fear dissipated because what they realized through at least observing and watching, even if they didn't understand all of the words, they could put what they saw into practice. They didn't have to understand it at that moment, but because they were willing to at least attempt it repetitively over time, 3 times a week, they got it. They got it. And it improved their other studies. It improved their functional skills. It improved the academics that they received. It improved their behaviors at home. So there's something to be said to a disciplined program. It's not just about discipline so that you can go out here and function in the world, but it's more so about being able to attend to the world and at least look around you and see what's going on. So I have nothing but admiration for martial arts. I really do.
Yeah, that's really fascinating.
It is. It's fascinating what it did for those children.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Simone.
No, I
Sumayyah,
was
sorry.
going to ask you, like, and Sheila kind of spoke to this too. How do you, like, when you go through all these stages of learning, right? How do you apply this to life now, right? Like when you're not on the mat and you're not sparring, you're not like necessarily doing martial arts, but you might be, encountering something in life that you have fear about. And it could just be worried about somebody else, right? Because that's fear too. It could be like you see that the whole world kind of went under the hypnosis of fear, right? Like we had
Yes.
this whole pandemic. So it's like, okay, everybody was afraid. How would you handle these things? Or, like how did you take that training and apply it there?
I'm going to say there's a couple of pointers that you both brought up, and I'm going to go back to a question that we ask ourselves, or people ask us: is it nature or is it nurture? Which one is going to outpower the other one? Okay, or is it both? The environment that we live in, it's going to be both nature and nurture, right? So from my experience, I'm not going to go too much into deep details, but the pandemic has done so much for a lot of us. But then the pandemic in my world, in John Salama's life, kind of went sour last year. Okay, so at the beginning of last year, my mother passed away. 3 weeks later, I realized, wait, what's happening? I'm going through relationship issues. I started to spiral down, and it ended up where, is it nature or is it nurture, right? And then I was like, where is my faith? Where is my foundation? Where is it where, John Salama, what was, okay, is going to be what is, and is going to continue to do what John Salama does. So in a way, because of my faith, I was able to believe so much in myself that I'm able to conquer so many things. Fear is what we create. Fear is not something that happens. Fear is what we create. And if we don't have enough faith in ourselves and enough belief in our religion or whatever you practice on a daily basis, this is when things fall apart. So when people ask me, I tell them, you know what? Fear is a disconnect. Okay? It's a disconnect. If we have faith, then we have hope. And if we have hope, that happens to be the rope between us and your almighty, whatever that situation is, right? Whatever you believe in, that higher power, that is the
Yes.
connection between us and them. Okay. So me personally, I say faith is the rope, is hope. Okay.
That's right.
It's a rope that's going to connect me between me and God. Gives me that belief, gives me that power that I'm going to continue to do what I do best. Okay.
And
So,
God speaks of that. He tells us that. He says, I've not given you the spirit of fear. It's not something you're born with, but I've given you power, love, and a sound mind to make decisions based on your circumstance.
absolutely. And, again, like he even said it, I'm not going to put you through situations or scenarios that you can't handle.
That's right.
Right. So just the fact that I know I can fight through it, or I know I can wake up from that situation, I'm not going to have fear stop me. Okay. I'm going to say, okay, what am I afraid about at the moment? What is worrying me at the moment? Okay. Is this something that I can control, or is it something that's out of my control? So if it's something that I can control, first of all, last year with everything that was happening, I couldn't control the situation, right? But I can control me.
Right.
I couldn't control the other person, but I can control how I'm going to respond to the situation. Okay. So then I go back and I say, are you reacting to the situation, or you're responding to the situation? Okay. Reaction is the current intelligent moment, which is a weak moment. It's a fearful moment. So we react based on what is given to us. Responding is when we sit back, think of the situation, and go, okay, am I in control of this or not? Okay, I'm not in control of the other person. So you know what? Forget the other person. I'm in control of me. So what am I going to do to me right now to rise above and not have that fear like captivate me? And like I go through this hypnotic moment and like start just like dwelling over the negative, right? And create worries and create all that stuff. And I'm like, no. Where's my faith at? Okay, where is my faith? Because that's how I'm going to take the martial art training and utilize it in a self-defense situation. That's what I'm going to use my faith, where I can take whatever storm you're going through right now and see yourself on the other side of the storm versus drowning into that situation.
Right.
Because the worst thing to do is to be irrational. It's the
faith
worst thing to do.
Faith has a way of bringing you to a point where you realize, even if you feel as though you're powerless in a situation, the faith that you have in the God that you serve helps you to understand, okay, let me just sit back, pray about this, and think about it for a moment. Let me allow him to carry me through. Let me be obedient to the message that I'm going to get. It is the discipline that goes with it. And with discipline, it will help dissipate fear that can keep you locked down. It really can hinder you from being your best self, as you said.
Oh, wait. That last line that you said, it will hinder you from being your best self. Again, for me last year, I know who John Salama was. I know who John Salama is, and I know what John Salama will be, right? Now, the worst thing to do is to fall in the trap. Don't fall in that trap. Rise above. Rise above.
Right. So everything in nature has a purpose, and that includes fear. What do you think the actual role of fear is in nature? Like when is it actually doing its job?
When is it going to help you, right? When is fear going to make you be successful, correct? Is when you sit there and you think of the situation, okay? Am I learning from the situation? What have I learned from the situation? What is it that I did to cause the situation at hand? Or what is it that the other person did where I'm able to read those signs next time so it doesn't happen to me again? You know what I mean? So say for example, business aspect. Oh my gosh, you know what? COVID did this and COVID did that. I'm about to lose my business. This, and the other. I'm like, wait a minute, sit down and relax. Once upon a time, a few years ago, you launched your business at $0.
That's right.
What did you learn in the last 10 years where you had a successful business and now COVID came, destroyed it, per se, right? What have you learned in the last 10 years that now, instead of taking you a year or two to get back on your feet, it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to get back on your feet, right? So fear is good. Sometimes people, like, I'm challenged with, there is a thought in my head that's causing me to be, fearful. Okay, how can I get creative right now
I
to
think
utilize?
that's the only purpose of it. When a fearful thought comes up, for you to give reflection, because I really do believe God hasn't given us that emotion. That is something that has been created when you tell a child, stop. You don't run out in front of a car. You don't put your hand on a fire that's burning your bare hand. Rather than explaining, because sometimes children are just too young to explain, but as they get older, explain to them, these are the steps you take. This is why you don't do something, instead of just stop. This is why you don't do it, because you're going to burn your hand. So for me, that's teaching them to be cautious. You don't put yourself in harm's way. That's a way of being cautious. You don't go into a burning building without some support around you. That's why firefighters have all of this gear on, because you're not going to come out without third-degree burns if the fire's all around. So these are instances where we have to understand, is it fear or is it caution? Because I know if my baby's in that building, I'm going in. I give you an example. These poor little children, just in New Orleans the weekend, the single mother of 4 children told her oldest daughter, 14, 3 children, her oldest daughter, 14, to take the children for a walk so she could rest a little bit, get dinner ready and rest a little bit. She and her 15-year-old friend took the other 2 children, 5 and I think 3, down to the lake. The 3-year-old fell in the lake. That 14-year-old child didn't give one thought, I'm sure, when she saw her sibling in that water. Knowing that she couldn't swim, she jumped in to save the 3-year-old. In the interim, the 15-year-old jumps in to save her and the 3-year-old. The 5-year-old runs back home to tell the mother all 3 of those children are missing. The current took those children away. So instead of having fear or being cautious and saying, wait, see if we can grab a stick, or let me run home and get help, or yelling for help, they jumped in that water to save that child, because love will make you do things. And these are instances where fear is not debilitating at all when you really love someone. But not to have it can be very detrimental. Both her children are dead. Those children, the current took them away. It's just a matter of time before the Coast Guard finds the bodies. She's lost 2 children. The other parent has lost a child because they threw caution to the wind. They were fearless and they went in. That would have been a good opportunity to exercise fear and try and get some help, but their minds didn't tell them to do that. And it's the same thing with a whole lot of people. If you see your child in danger, you're not going to care whether or not you can do something or not. If you got to stand in front of a bus to save your child, you're going to do it. You're going to do it.
Right. Absolutely.
So when you talk about that, Sumayyah, when is fear okay? I don't know if it's ever okay. I can't explain that part, but I can say there are times when people will not exercise it at all if there's danger. That's a
Yeah. You know what? I kind of feel like it's the same for like pain, right? Pain serves a purpose. It's not fun, but if you don't feel it, you won't pull your hand back out of the fire.
Right.
Right? So fear is kind of like that too. Like I've been in places where I've been walking and then suddenly I'm like, "Ooh, what am I feeling?" And realize it was fear, and realize like when I looked around, I was like, "I don't think I'm in a safe place." let me do something about that, where if I hadn't felt the fear, I might have been walking around thinking I was still in a safe place.
Exactly.
So I
I
think it
mean,
does.
I think you exercise caution. You saw
Mm,
that you were not in a safe place, because I've been there too.
mhm.
And those are the times I'll clutch my purse, I'll grab something out because I always keep something with me. I'll exercise a little caution, I'll walk fast, and I'll get out of there.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you do exercise caution when you realize. So you're right, fear has its place.
Right.
I mean, we just celebrated Easter, right?
Yeah.
And like we know that the week before resurrection, even Jesus himself was there was a slight of fear in him, right?
Yes.
Because as humans, it's normal,
Yeah.
right? It's normal. It's like what I'm not saying like, oh, you should not be scared or you should, you should not have fear in your life. No, fear is there for a reason, like we're all saying, right? It's how we handle it and how we handle the situation. Um, but the one part that we don't understand is how the brain works. Okay? How the brain works during the moments of fear, right? The entire system shuts down. Okay,
Right.
so here's some facts. The brain is not fully developed until the age of 25,
Mm.
and
Exactly.
if people don't know this, please go out and research it. Right, a
True.
3 and 4 year old or 5 to 7 year old, when they're fearful, their prefrontal cortex is not even developed yet, right? So now they're in the downstairs part of the brain. It's in the amygdala part of the brain. Okay, this is for a young child. Okay, imagine adults. Adults is the same way. All that knowledge, all that wisdom, everything goes out the door when we're scared. We panic, right? And we automatically fall back into our childhood years for whatever happened when we were children, and we panic and we go to the amygdala part of the brain. We go into that flight or fright stage. So we don't think properly. And this is why, I tell people, don't react when you're scared. Okay? Take a deep breath because oxygen awakens the brain. And then
It's true.
think.
It's very true.
Yeah.
Drowning
Um,
is the number one cause of death for autistic children. They have no fear of water. They love it.
yeah.
And I've I've talked to so many parents, and I tell them, when you get that diagnosis, the first thing you make sure they can do is swim.
Mm.
I just had a friend whose 19-year-old cousin had been nonverbal autistic cousin, constantly passing by, driving by water. In his mind, he tracked how far that lake was from his house. And one day he slipped out of the house when the mother wasn't looking. This was just a month and a half ago. He journeyed to that water. People saw him, but he's just happy bouncing around, 19-year-old young man.
Mm.
And they looked for him for a week, and he washed up on shore one day
Oh,
because he
that's
didn't know
terrible.
how to swim. He drowned. So you're right. The brain doesn't develop fully until 25. But when you have a child with special needs, you understand that these children are absolutely fearless. It is something that they do not have. You have to teach them caution. And even for some of the most severe children, it is sometimes impossible to even teach them that. So you have to do the things that you need to do to prepare them for situations. And one of the best things you can do is teach them how to swim. It's like the young man who walked out of school in New York years ago. I don't know if you all remember that. Teenage autistic nonverbal black man, young black man. They found him. They saw him on the bus. They had cameras. He found his way to the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm.
And I think it was a month later, they found his body washed back up on shore.
Wow.
Because the water is like the Pied Piper, it draws them. And so if you don't have this fear and you really want something, you're going to throw caution to the wind, as I said before. You're going to go with all of your gusto. You don't know to have that fear. It's like the parent who sends their child off, and the first thought you get, Lord, what's going to happen? Please take care of my child. First emotion that comes in is fear. Until you calm yourself, you do what you need to do. You pray or you meditate, and you say, you know what? They've got to grow up. It is out of my hands. So all I can do is ask the Lord to protect my child. But that kind of logic doesn't always come with everyone. And you do have people who, at the time when fear should be exercised, it's not.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that it needs to be like a balance, right? That it plays some role in there, but if it's out of balance, not enough, and or too much, either way can end up in bad results. You can end up having bad results.
Well, it's like
Oh
Evil
yeah, absolutely.
Knievel. The two of you may be too young to know about Evil Knievel. When I was a girl, we used to love when they'd have those Evil Knievel specials on CBS or NBC,
He,
and we
he
would
was like a
watch.
motorcycle. Wasn't he
Yeah,
like on a motorcycle? Yeah.
it was. It was I could call it a
Like a
motorcycle,
stunt man.
but he literally has broken every bone in his body. And I remember the one time we saw him. I think it was in the 70s. I was a girl. That motorcycle fell on those cars and that body went bouncing like a rag doll. I never got the image out of my mind because I never seen anything like it before. And he literally broke every bone in his body. And it's amazing to me that after rehabilitation, which took a long time, he went back and did it again.
Yeah, that's that right there.
No amount of money would have been worth it.
No.
Well, I mean, okay, but let's look at it from this perspective. If you've been through storms in your life, right, and there was fear involved, and you came out of those storms, right, and you're a different person, okay, what's another storm? There's going to be fear all the time. There's going to be storms all the time. So in his situation, he's like, you know what? Yes, I did fall off the bike. Yes, I broke the bones, but I'm going to do it again. You know what I mean? I'm going to do it again, because if he lives in fear, or if he lived in fear of breaking the bones again, then he wouldn't have created the history that he's created.
Well,
Right?
That's
you
true.
Now, I'm not saying that that's what we should all do.
know.
Don't put yourself in situation.
Oh no.
Don't put don't put yourself in situation to get hurt.
Right.
But whenever you're in a fearful situation, or if you're going through storms that's causing fear in your head, always think of what happened the last time you were fearful. What happened the last time when you went through the seasons in your life, right? And how maybe God pulled you through it, or how you were able to conquer that situation. So, like, don't have it weigh you down so much that you can't focus and you can't think and you can't come out of that situation.
I look at it like this. That's a true statement. I remember being a little girl and I grew up in New Orleans. So we went through a really bad hurricane. I was a little girl. And I was standing by the window. The lightning lit up the sky. And I watched this big oak tree, probably was about 200 years old, singe. I could hear it singe from the ground and miss our house by that much.
Oof.
And I told my daddy, I said, Daddy, when I grow up, I'm never staying for a storm. And we went through several storms like that because my dad would never leave. So when I started driving at 14, and I told him, I said, Daddy, I got a car, because my dad was a mechanic and people would just give him these old cars. And I had a lot of cars. He'd fix them up. Sometimes my brakes would go out and I just drift to his service station. But I always had a car. I said, you better be leaving, because if you're not leaving, I'm leaving. I'm out of here. And I literally never stayed for another storm when I learned how to drive, because the fear of what that created within me kept me from staying to see what was going to happen.
Mm.
And I ended up homeless after Katrina for 2 years. And I never forget this. I told my husband, after we got back to New Orleans, because we couldn't sell anything, and I wasn't fearful of another storm, but it's going to happen there. It's just par for the course. So I told him, I said, listen, the minute we can get everybody where they're going, we're going to have another home somewhere, because I just can't do this. So he didn't think anything of it, and I never revisited it. But we had to evacuate 3 more summers because of storms. I remember that last evacuation. The storm didn't do anything in New Orleans, but the power was out. The power was out for 2 weeks, and you can't go back to New Orleans without power. It's just impossible. So we couldn't get back into the city. And I said, you know what? I can't take it anymore. We have to have refuge because I don't want my family to be homeless again. But it took me a while, and all this time I was saving, I was putting something aside. He didn't even know it. These 3 years coming up to this, I was putting stuff aside. I was praying. I was writing my affirmations. I was looking around. I had a friend looking to see what the housing market looked like in the greater Houston area. I said, I'm not going to be homeless again. Lord, help me to not be homeless again. So fear has the ability to also create a motivation within someone. It doesn't mean that it's going to debilitate you or hinder you from doing something all the time, but it can create a drive that will give you the assertion to go a little further in your life. And when you ask somebody, when is it a good thing? Sometimes that's when it's a good thing.
Right. Right. Because homelessness is probably something you should fear to some degree. Not
Never
if
thought
it's
we'd be homeless.
overwhelming you though.
Yeah,
But
I
if it's
never thought in America we'd be homeless. Not
right.
coming from a good working class family, being educated, doing everything that we were supposed to do right. And I'm telling you, it was tough. It was absolutely tough. Not having a
Right.
home to go back to, not even being able to get a FEMA trailer, doors closed in your face everywhere that you were, and still attached to a mortgage of a house that wasn't livable.
That wasn't there. Right.
Wasn't
It
there.
was livable. Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't livable. And I had to depend on being an A-type personality. We're not, honestly, I learned during Katrina, I'm not in control. I can desire what I want to happen, but my journey is led by the Lord. So I have to be flexible in how I view where I go in life. I can't just be stuck right there. And I have to be open to the ideas and the suggestions. He sustained us. We never went hungry. We had shelter over our heads. But I ended up responsible for so many people, not just my family, my parents, 2 aunts, cousins, and yet he made a way. But what I wanted, and nothing's ever guaranteed, I strategically started working on a plan. In all of those years it took me about 5 years before I was able to get another home to live in, because I just needed to make sure if this ever happened again, all of these extended family members would not go through this again. And finally, nearly 6 years ago, I decided, you know what? I'm out. I'm out of New Orleans. As much as I love it, I can't do it anymore. And I left for good. But there, even where I am, there is actually no guarantee anywhere. But my fear of homelessness, it really motivated me to do something else and to make sure that we would be protected if something like that were to happen again. And I was just driven. I was driven to do it. So there are times when fear can actually drive you to a better place. Doesn't always have to be debilitating.
Right.
Well, it's like comment meme that goes around where fear is going to bring you down, right? Or you're going to face everything and rise. You
Yes.
chose to take it. You chose to take it to rise. You chose to take those little things that happened to you, whether it was nature or nurture or both, right? You've learned so much where you rose above. And that's the key. Again, it's that mental state. You thought through it. You planned, you desired, you didn't just like think of yourself. No, you thought of yourself and your family and your extended family, and you're like, wait a minute, how am I going to rise? But ladies, let's face it, we live in a world where people don't see that. people don't see that we could rise above, right?
Yeah, we
And
can.
unfortunately, I feel like because of COVID and stuff, like I'm talking to a lot of friends right now, and we have disconnected ourselves from our friends, or they've disconnected themselves from us due to fear. Okay,
Right.
fear
Mhm.
of being together, fear of getting sick, fear of stepping out of the house, fear of going out to eat. Like, I'm going to catch this, I'm going to catch that. I get it. It is a disease, right? And I'm not like saying that, just move on with your life and do what you can because you got to live your life. No, be cautious, but don't be fearful. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then now some of these people don't know what to do and they don't have friends anymore. They don't have anybody to talk to. So
That's
now
true.
Right.
they're
Yeah.
in their house, they're in their head. That the concept of fear just weighs them down, and they don't
Mhm.
have a mentor in their life anymore. They don't have a friend in their life anymore. So just imagine if we're able to tell them, like, go out and talk, even if it's on social media. You know what I mean? And there will be ugly out there. Trust me, we all know that is ugly out there. Okay, but
Right.
ignore the ugly. Ignore the ugly.
Well, you know what I wonder, like, John, you had said something earlier about it basically hijacking. Is it the hippocampus? Is that what they call the prefrontal cortex?
Yes,
Right? So basically, your ability to think once fear takes over is gone.
it's gone. You
You
you literally
can't
shut
do it,
you shut down that part of your brain,
Yeah.
which is kind
and
of a
and you
self-fulfilling situation because if it's shut down, how do you get out of it? That's why it's such a
mm,
hypnotic thing, right?
you're right. You're right. And for some people, it's really hard for them to come out of that stage. It's really hard
Right.
for them to come out of that moment. And this is why, I hate to mention this, but this is why when we have suicide,
Right.
attempts or self-destructive um, drugs or whatever the situation may be, because again, it depends on the person. Like, again, I go back to nature and nurture, right? If there was situations in their past where causes fear and they go back to that moment in their life where they were abused or they were mistreated of any way or whatever, they go back to those thoughts right away. Okay,
Mhm.
and maybe this situation has nothing to do with that situation, but that's what triggers the brain automatically, right?
Right.
And then they go back into their emotional part of the brain, which is the downstairs brain. You're in the basement, you're in the ruts, right? So, if they don't have anybody in their life, if they don't have a mentor, if they don't have a good friend, if they don't have the ability to pick up the phone and say, Sumayyah, I need you. I need to talk to you right now. There's stuff going
Mhm.
on in my head. Then it, it's hard for them to come out of that situation. For me, I came out of that situation because, like, my circle of friends were tight. And for me, because this is what I do for a living. Lucky
Mhm.
for me, it's what I do for a living, right?
Yeah.
So I realized what I was going through. So then I started picking up the phone, started talking to friends, and I said, I need help. This is what's going on in my head. This is how I feel, blah, blah, blah. And they will all talk to me about it. And the fact that I was able to talk to them about it, helped me. I reached out to my mentor. I reached out to my priest at the church. I went to therapy. I did a lot of stuff because there was a lot of grieving going on in my life. And it was
Right.
like what you would call like a double grieve. Like you're grieving over somebody who passed away, but you're also grieving over, the death of your marriage, right?
Right.
So what do you do? How do you handle it? Right?
Mhm.
So yeah, the prefrontal cortex can shut down. Like the brain in itself can do damage. If you're in your head, you're dead. Okay. And then, I go back into the reactive stage and responsive stage, you know, and people don't understand the difference in both. Well, you're still reacting when you're responding. Okay, true. I am reacting when I'm responding. The difference is when I'm reacting at the moment, I'm reacting based on emotion. However, when
Mhm.
I'm responding based on intelligence emotion. There's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish we had more of you to go into these schools. This morning, I got a message from a friend that I've been mentoring whose 14-year-old daughter tried to kill herself.
Mm,
She slit her wrists because she said she just doesn't want to be in school. She is so debilitated by fear from being home for 2 years, being
Oh.
homeschooled, until she just doesn't know. She hasn't caught anything since she's been there, but she feels fearful being in the building, in the surroundings. And this child is not an anomaly. We have so many of these children now in these schools like this, and yet no one is sending in any psychotherapy help. No one is sending in mentors. No, the school board should be doing this. I mean, we pay enough in taxes to send in mentors, send in psychotherapy, send in ways to help these children cope with what happened to them over the last 2 years and to get them reacclimated back into the school. I have a friend with an 11-year-old who's been in school, has a lot of behaviors because this child would rather stay at home with because of the fear that is going to happen again.
Mm.
So why be there? And these are thoughts in children's heads.
I'd like to see what their parents talk about at home. I'd
I
like
would
to see what they're their how they're natured and how they're nurtured. You know what I mean? Like behavior is not something that just happens.
True. But you know something I thought about, John? Where do children spend the most of their week? In school.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Children are sent to school from some children from 7:30 till 3:30,
Mhm.
5 days a week, and sometimes in after school care.
Mhm.
These children spend more time in school than they do with their parents. I do agree with you. Both areas need a focus
Mhm.
because when you have a
Absolutely.
child like this, I've been working on these voter guides, and I talked to one of the candidates for governor in Nevada, and he's talking about this because this is an issue that's happening in Nevada in the school system. And he said, listen, we have to give the teachers and the schools the tools that they need to work with these kids. And while we're doing that, we also have to give the parents the tools to continue it when these
Mm.
children are with them. So either we partner to have healthy children in this world or we don't. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to partner because parents are stretched thin. Both parents are out working, one parent's out working, however it is. And the children are at this school, I mean, like you go to work.
Mhm.
So we have to make sure that both entities, the school, the parents, they both have the tools that they need to bring forth healthy children for our society, and we're failing at it. These children
Right.
have so much fear, and it's
I'm glad
become a psychotic problem.
I'm glad you brought that up because like even my martial art business right now, we are teaching what we call the whole child. Okay, we're teaching based on the concept of Dr. Daniel Siegel, the whole brain child. Okay,
Yeah,
so we belong to an organization called Skills Worldwide, and we focus on the science and psychology of how kids learn and grow. And one of the things that we've created in our system is how parents need to work with children. So we have parenting classes too inside of our martial arts studio. What parents need to do to help their children, okay? Because we just make assumptions and we parent the way we were parented. That doesn't necessarily work anymore, right? The way we were parented back in the 70s is not going to be the same way we need to parent the children right now, right?
right.
And even with the teachers, anybody can go to school, anybody can get a degree, and everybody can become a teacher, but do they understand the science and psychology of how those children learn and how they grow and where fear comes in, at what age fear starts? Like if you realize 3 and 4 year olds, there is no fear.
No,
5 and 6 year olds, there
Mm-mm.
is no
Mm-mm.
fear.
none.
Starting around 7 to 9 years old, that's when fear kicks in. That's like the beginning stage of the hormonal stage, the beginning stage of puberty, right? Because of
Right,
all those chemicals kicking in and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff is thing is we're knowledgeable enough to know this stuff. We become parents without understanding children. And then
right.
we try to raise children while we ourselves are children. Like, we need to do better. I agree with you. Schools need to do better. I think instead of like when parents get pregnant and they buy this book that says what to expect when you're expecting, No, I think that book needs to go out the door, and I think they need to start reading things like, The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Daniel Siegel. They
Right.
need to understand the science and psychology of how children learn, how children operate, and what we need to do as parents. Now, do we punish or do we discipline? And the thing
Right.
is, fear. When I was saying earlier, it's the behavior. The behavior is something that is learned. It's not something that happens automatically. It
That's
is
right.
something that is learned, and it's learned through our fears.
Mm-hmm.
It's learned through parents saying, "See, I told you not to do that because when you do that, this is what happens." And I'm like, "Well, that helped. How did that help you as a parent when you were growing up?" Versus
Exactly.
saying,
Yeah.
"All right, Johnny, I understand, that you did something right now. Could you tell me why did you decide to do it? Let's talk about it. Let's see what was good out of it and what was not so good out of it." It's all in the language that we speak, ladies. So
That's
we
right.
can lessen the fear in the head. We can lessen being in the downstairs part of the brain. We can lessen turning off the prefrontal cortex. So when we're in a fearful situation, when we're in a storm, this thing up here never turns off.
I
Right.
remember I spent a lot of time with my aunt growing up because my mother worked. And if I did something she didn't like, she would tell me, she would reprimand me and tell me, "You knew better." And I would think to myself,
Mm.
even as a little girl, well, if I knew better, I wouldn't have done it. And I was wait- I was always waiting for her to tell me, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I never forgot that as a parent. I never
Right.
seen it. I prefer to correct a child in love and tell them what the correct thing that you could have done, or
Mhm.
several things that you could have done other than this, and why this won't work for you, or you shouldn't have done this. I never forgot that lesson because she would tell me that all the time. Every time I'd stand there as a little girl thinking, I wouldn't have done this if I had known I shouldn't
You know, what occurs to me too as you tell that story, Sheila, and just thinking about this conversation, when you tell a story about the kids being so afraid to go into school and not having anybody help them with it, where's the help going to come from when the adults are afraid too? Like,
have.
even the people who are supposed to come in and help,
Mhm.
this over the past couple of years, it's been more of a massive, like, when you think about the contagiousness and the polarization aspects of fear, it literally gripped almost everybody in one way or another. Very few people escaped it, even if they said, "Well, I wasn't afraid of the virus." They was afraid of the government. They were afraid of something,
Somebody, you're right.
right?
We get anybody to come in for my son, and he has all these hours that the insurance will pay for
Right,
because of fear.
because of fear. So we're running out of time. So, John, two things. I want you to give our audience three tips off the top of your head. Like, if you could think of three
Mm.
tips as a martial artist and a life coach that you could give people to not just like get through fear, but I would think a lot of how you deal with fear is what you're doing in your everyday, right?
Okay.
Like, what would be three
This
tips?
okay. First thing I'm going to start with is have faith.
Okay.
Have faith. Like without faith, we don't have hope. Without hope, there is no connection between us and your higher power. Okay.
Right.
So again, whatever that higher power is. Number two is happiness. Okay. We don't have happiness in our life anymore. And a lot of times we have the fears because we lack the happiness. We're not happy with ourselves. We're not happy with the current situation, right? So now we're in a very desperate situation because we're chasing happiness somewhere else. Okay. And then the last one, I'm going to say love. Okay.
Yes.
Do you love yourself enough to snap out of that situation that you're in? And then after loving yourself, do you love that person in front of you that you're willing to either let them go, okay? Or do you love yourself enough that you're able to let that situation go? Do you love yourself enough for you to be able to just walk away, forgive, forget, and move on? And honestly, nothing else in life is going to help you conquer anything. without those things. Even in martial arts, you have to have faith in yourself. You have to believe in yourself for you to defend yourself and protect yourself. Okay. Okay. You've got to be happy enough. Okay. So you're not clouded in the middle of that situation. If you get angry in the middle of a self-defense situation, you're going to lose focus. You're going to get clouded. So you have to have that internal happiness, happy enough towards yourself that you're going to protect yourself. Okay. And then the last one, even in a self-defense situation, have enough love that you don't hurt that person in front of you. Self-defense is not about hurting the person. Self-defense is not necessarily inflicting pain on that person. Self-defense is having enough ability to protect yourself and tell that person to walk away. Okay, listen, I can protect myself simply blocking. I don't have to hit that person back because I'm that good, or that individual needs to be that good. Okay, so again, yes, put up your guards. Yes, block, but you don't have to fight back. You don't have to say nasty words. You don't have to punch them back. So for me, I'm gonna have to go with those three things: love. I'm
I
sorry,
like
faith,
that.
Like it.
happiness, and love.
Yes, love, faith, happiness, and love. I like that. I
Yep.
like it. Those are three great tips. And John, can you tell the audience where to find you?
Absolutely. I am on Instagram, Elevate Consulting. You can look me up there. You can find me on Facebook, John Salama. Just the name, you'll find me. You'll see my face. You can't miss this face. And you guys are more than welcome to reach me out by phone as well if you want to. And then again, all that information is on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, wonderful. We'll link it in the show notes too, so that you guys can reach out if you want to. And please support John. Go on Instagram,
Thank you.
follow him, show him some support, please. And thank you so much, John. We really appreciate you, and we
Really,
appreciate
Thank
you
you,
being
ladies.
here. So, Sheila, this was a great episode.
it really was. You know, we could have spent even more time.
We
John
could have.
got off into faith, and faith is always the key. But did you notice during the pandemic that a lot of people seem to have lost their faith? They
Yes,
became, or let me say, they became confused by faith.
right. Because can you have faith and fear in that same moment? Can they both live together really?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't think so. But I will say this: you have to choose who and what you have faith in. Can
Right.
you have faith in God and in man too?
Hmm.
I know
That's a
biblically
good
he tells
question.
us not to put our faith in man. It tells us in Psalms because man will deceive you every time. A faith belongs in God and in his word. And I think that with so many of our people, because we do have people who really they believe in God, they look to their spiritual leaders, and if the spiritual leader is afraid, the shepherd of the flock is afraid, where does that leave the flock?
Right. Right. Exactly. And so, and then basically you have to realize at that point that your spiritual leader is not where your faith has to be. It has to be in God.
Well,
It has
and
to be some personal relationship
that's right.
between you and the creator.